Welcome to the Helm developer call for Thursday, September 20th, 2018. If you're new and don't know how this goes, we tend to go through a handful of things. We do announcements, then we go through stand-ups of all the core folks, then we have discussion on any topics that need to be discussed, and then we give out assignments for the following week, which is the moderator and note taker for the next meeting, and the issue Sherpa, which is the person who's designated with going through the Helm issue queue and making sure that all that stuff is curated and handled. So that's how we go with it. Right here, we don't have any announcements listed. Did anybody have any announcements that they wanted to fill in for this week? Do we have any?
RC4 was released yesterday.
Okay.
2.11 RC4.
RC4 of, and that's 1.11 support for Helm, right? Or where do you release that?
It's 2.11 Helm version with 1.11 Kubernetes support. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Hope we get that released soon. Do we have any other announcements? Silence is nothing. All right, we'll go into stand-ups. And so with that, I'll start with Justin.
Good morning. I've done absolutely nothing. I've done, crap that Intel wants me to do, but I've done nothing for the project. Although I do a lot of, inside promotion, I would say. But yeah, that's me. Josh, you want to go?
Sure. I don't have much this week either. I'm trying to work with a few people on how to support uploads through the Helm push plugin for different API specs. I'll talk more in discussion. Sorry. Butcher.
I'll try and give updates for all the people on my team who aren't here too. Brian is working on the Lua implementation and some other stuff for Helm 3. Adam is working on a ton of different things for Helm 3. He's been working on values files stuff, trying to streamline that now that we don't have the gRPC in the middle. It means we can merge values a lot earlier. He's also been working on the CRD that's going to replace one of the secrets that we stored before. And then he's been working on sorting out a couple of race conditions with our new way of doing things without tiller. Tiller basically kept us from having a number of race conditions, but once we remove tiller, we have to solve those problems. So he's been working on some of that too. Michelle and Matt Fisher have both been working on the 2.11 release, and I have too. We got Sprig updated to a new version, and that got rolled in, and then several bugs got fixed in this latest version. And then in addition to that, yeah, we've been working on like the ACR Helm repo and just testing that out. I think Josh has also been looking at that a little bit, and various kind of details on the side, and I've been writing Helm demos for this conference next week. So coming up in the next week, the kind of hope is that 2.11 will be done and Fisher will release that. And then Adam is hoping to get some of the code he's been working on PRable and get that merged in. So I think that's back to you, Matt.
Of course, I was muted. I'll throw it to Adnan real quick.
Oh, when did Adnan join? When did you join?
I kind of sneaked in a little bit there.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late this morning. So I've been working away on the Monocular 1.0 stuff. We've contributed the chart service and chart repo stuff. So now when you install the Helm chart, it'll on the dev v1 branch, it'll spin up some jobs and cron jobs to sync the chart repositories. Everything's a lot more faster and responsive, which is really, really nice. So continuing with that and clean up over the next week or so, and hopefully we can get this running somewhere once we have a cluster.
So I guess it's on to me now because you were the last one added on it. I'm running it. So
Go for
for
it.
me, I'll go into my stuff real quick. I've been trying to chase down getting us that cluster, which was stuck on some internal technical things with a certain host yesterday that will hopefully be chased down today. There was some value that had to be put into some field that they didn't have that needed to be chased down. So it's still being worked on. But I'm also working on using Monocular to get the hub service going. I've been working on chasing down policies and things like that that repositories need to follow, and starting to document that, and then looking at workflow processes and tooling, so that way when we commit changes to a CI system, we can then automatically detect the config file change and then reload, probably just do a new hum release, as well as chasing down the cluster. These are some of the things that I'm chasing down at the moment to try to figure out how do we do that, along with get some practical documentation. I would love for folks to be able to say, here, you want to go run a repository in GitHub or GitLab using those pages. Here's a quick tutorial on how you can do it right now. And we can start adding more like object storage and all those providers and after, but just to have a couple different ones out of the box that people are know and are comfortable with would be really good to get the ball rolling. So I'm digging into what does that mean and how do we do that? Have you even been looking, Matt, at your old GitHub plugin for Helm for inspiration? So that's where I've been. I want to get this out the door, so I've been focusing mostly on that, along with the chart testing repo to help prep people for that. We'll have a blog post on that next week probably. I want to get the 1.1.0 release out, and we've got some feedback on a last PR I'd like to see landed first for chart testing. So that's what I've been on. And so I think that's it for stand-ups. Did anybody else who's not one of the core contributors to a project have something they wanted to stand up or anything they wanted to give real quick? Silence means no. All right, fantastic. So that means we move into the discussion phase here. For discussion, we don't have any topics, but I know, Josh, you said you had something.
Yeah, there's one thing that's coming up. So Matt was talking about, maybe he was talking about somebody trying to provide Helm repos as a service, but they have a different API backend than Chart Museum, and they want to use the push plugin. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to support multiple API specs for uploads. And the idea that that I'm kind of thinking of is there's something we can put in index YAML that says this is the HTTP way to upload a chart and this is the route that it should hit. If that's maybe the way that we can make push work long term. If there's some way, if the repo could somehow describe itself to say this is how I accept uploads.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think if you can put something in like index YAML that's like server info upload, and then it's like method post URL this, because then it's less about having like a single spec to rule them all, and it's just like you can implement that however you want. So
yeah, you could probably declare what kind of authentication it supports. And then we could actually write some general plugins instead of having to write a one-off plugin for every single backend.
Right. What I kind of don't want is to have like support multiple providers in the plugin, because I don't think that's the right thing to make it into Helm. So
yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would rely on your knowledge of how the repositories are actually starting to come into existence to know whether you could actually describe it in a fairly straightforward way.
Yeah, the only thing that's interesting, or not interesting but difficult, is that field wouldn't be part of the cached index, or it wouldn't be part of the repositories YAML. So you would have to like look at the cached index YAML, and if you're pushing direct to URL, you'd have to just go download it first. And I don't know. It seems like better than saying like Azure or something like that, and then
Yeah. Again, it feels like you could get, for the majority of cases, you could get a pretty vendor neutral approach to being able to describe how to do it. We could do one library instead of, like you said, I think it's becomes a pain to people when they have to manage a whole bunch of different plugins, especially when they're all doing basically minor permutations
yeah.
of the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I mean there can be a default if it's not specified, but okay, all right, that's all I have.
Great. Did yes, can we add an agenda item? So Matt asked about adding an agenda item for next week. Hey, Matt, since you volunteered, since you asked the question, why don't you go jump in and prep next week's section and then add that as a discussion topic?
But I think someone was impersonating me. That wasn't.
Okay. So what other topics do we have for this week? Do we have any other topics?
Do we need to go through any of the? We should probably chat through the governance, the next stages on the governance stuff, and also I can give a little bit of an update on where we are as far as all the CNCF stuff is going. I probably should have done that during my stand-up.
Did you want to dig into the governance part, or do you want me to give an overview of it?
I'll do an overview of where we are in CNCF, and you can do an overview on governance. So the migration to CNCF has been an ongoing process. We've hit almost all the milestones we needed to hit by September, except for one that I'm aware of. We currently haven't finished the trademark transfer, which, believe it or not, we had never done under the Kubernetes org even. So right now, technically, Helm is a trademark of Microsoft. So I'm partway through that, but the last of that should go through as soon as I can get people signing things. But we are on track with all of the governance stuff. And I think we have all the major resources moved over at this point, right? As far as what we were obligated from CNCF to do. So the original goal had been that by KubeCon Seattle, that the bumping up of Helm to the CNCF would be totally complete, and I think we are well on track to do that. So that leads us to governance.
So I have a couple of things, but yeah, on governance, we are on track with that. We have 1 week left for nominations and acceptance of nominations for the Helm org maintainers. And so we've got the project maintainers who do the day-to-day management of all the code and everything else, websites, all of that. And then the org maintainers are kind of similar to the Kubernetes steering committee with dealing with that top level stuff. In the initial election, per the governance, we will elect 7, even though we can have up to 9 org maintainers per the governance. The initial election in the governance only accounted for 7 people being initially elected, and we have 9 people running right now. So at least 2 of the people will not make it in who are currently running, but we do have 9 nominated and accepted. In fact, I got that list. I'll share that list here real quick, because I created a list so we could see. And this is the current list of folks dropped into chat here who have been nominated and accepted. The companies, because no company can hold a majority, and the projects, because in the initial election, we have a breakdown of how many can come from Helm Core and charts and then other projects under Helm. So all of the things that they represent are listed on here per owners, files, and details like that. So this is where we're at on the elections. And it ends, a week from tomorrow is when the nomination period ends. And then we will be going out the door with, I'll pull the link to it. We'll be going out to an election similar to what's going on in the Kubernetes community. Right now using, what's the system called? CIVS. We'll be using that system to conduct an election using the Schultz method, of doing it, which is the same way that Kubernetes does it.
For the steering committee, right?
For the Helm org maintainers, yeah, we'll be doing that. That's how Kubernetes does it for the steering committee, yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be doing the same method on the people who are here, taking into account company affiliations and project breakdown in the first one. So it's going to be a little complicated, but that's what we'll be doing here. We'll probably go out the Monday after that. So like the 1st of October, we'll actually launch the form. And Civs does some nice things because it doesn't, so whoever runs it can't see the results until the election's closed. So we'll open it up and we'll collect it. And then when the election's closed, we'll be able to see the results and then map those to the breakdown in the governance that we have to hit in this first election. And then I'll be able to announce it. So, okay.
A Matt Jordy, I love that.
Matt Jordy, yeah, we need one more Matt. We could shoot for the Matt Jordy. I like that. So that's what's going on with governance. There's one other thing that I should have done in my stand-up. We have taken the chart testing thing and put it on Quay. We talked about that a little while ago, about Quay or Docker Hub or whatnot. And you'll see here, we have chart testing up there. And the reason for that is you get much more detailed metrics. Now, we haven't started publicizing chart testing. Once 1.1.0 comes out, we're going to write a blog post and start publicizing it for folks to use. I've got the blog post mostly written, but we chose this because we could get metrics out of it. In fact, I actually have something that grabs the metrics and sticks them into object storage because Quay only keeps them around for so long. They don't keep them forever because they actually keep the details in every request. And so the aggregated logs are being pulled off their API daily and stuck into object storage. When we get the new cluster up and running and we get the new setup going where we're going to host Monocular, I'll actually migrate all of that stuff over there. So that way it's stored in the Helm project in a place. And so that way we've got aggregated logs that we can share because we have to be careful with the detailed logs. They can actually contain usernames mapped to IP addresses and things like that. And it's got PII all over the place. So we don't want to maintain that stuff long-term, right? We want to kind of shut that stuff down and just grab aggregated information, which is safer to share with the public. So we're going to stick that and we'll have that so people can query it and do what they want with it for a longer time, because Docker just keeps a counter, Docker Hub, and we wanted better details. So that's what I've got set up over there and why we chose it. We'll start publicizing that soon, hopefully next week.
I'd also like to move the Monocular images there, or Docker Hub, wherever makes sense. Because right now they're in the Bitnami repo and the Kubeapps repo.
Yeah. Also, Quay gives us the security scanning, which is kind of nice. And we can do the same thing. Yeah. So are you already on? We can hit me up if you're not already on the org. And we can
yeah, I think you added me, but I'll double check then.
Sweet. Go to town. And if we want to set up a metrics collection, long-term metrics collection for that too, we can. That's not hard.
Cool.
All right. It's actually just a cron job that runs once a day with some environment variables thrown in.
Nice, sweet.
All right. That's what I had for discussion topics. Is there anything else?
I see that Matt Fisher and Brian both joined late. Guys, I did your stand-up for you, but if you want to say anything.
Nothing exciting to report other than Release Candidate 4 was released yesterday. I guess one discussion item might be, is there any particular date that we might be interested in a official 2.11 release sometime next week probably? Or I'm not sure. I think we've pretty much got all the bugs squashed out for this 2.11 release. So I think we're ready to ship. It's just a matter of when do we want to ship and get the release notes and all that kind of fun stuff out there.
Yeah, my update is there's just working on Lua today. I'm actually moving into conformance testing the VM. That's why I was late, because I had to take an excited walk because everything was working magically and I had to like step away and be like, no. But that's what I'm doing. Yeah, and I asked the team to relay that progress is moving forward, and everything's on pace.
So that's fantastic. By the way, one of the things we have to put out there at some point, because I've been asked this at least a half dozen times in the last month, why Lua? I think we actually need to go to folks and explain our reasons behind it and what it lets them do, because a lot of people don't get it. And they're not Lua users and they don't understand Lua and embedding it. They're like, why not JavaScript? Why wouldn't you just do it in JavaScript? And then I start explaining it and they're like, oh, that makes sense. But I know, well, a few people ask the question. There's a whole lot more who have that question who haven't thought it through. And so if we had something written up that we could point people to, it would probably help them understand the decision and maybe even be excited about it instead of going, Lua, another language?
Yeah, I totally agree. Hopefully it's down the road, hopefully like mid-October. I'll be putting together more like documentation and hopefully like a series of blog posts on the details of implementation. And the question of why Lua over JavaScript is hard for me to answer because I'm supremely biased at this point. But yeah, just more documentation, I agree, down the road will probably be help sell what we're doing.
Yeah, I got asked that internally 2 days ago. And beyond that, it was more of what are you going to be able to do with it? So yeah, any docs we get out there would be great.
This might be one of those things we even put just a couple teaser posts up on the Helm blog about, just so we can point people to asking why and what's going on and let them know that more is coming. So when they start asking the question, at least gets them excited and answers that short-term question, even though Helm 3 is not out. We can probably, and I'm happy to help write something like that up.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. The other thing.
You had talked about that a little bit earlier this week, suggesting we write that. Fisher had talked about writing a blog post like that earlier this week.
Cool.
We'll form a consortium of Matts and solve this problem.
Because that always works.
Fisher, back to your thing on releasing 2.11. We should probably talk about that real quick, just to finish that out. Unless something else comes in, does Tuesday or Wednesday sound like an acceptable day? It's not Monday, which means the freak out of last minute things that they need for your conference will hopefully be out of the way, right? So
yeah, I think Tuesday is sounding like the best day to go forward with a full release, just to like have the full focus on the release and going through and forward with that.
Cool.
There is the slight chance that if anything blows up in the Ignite setup, we would have to delay till Wednesday. But that should
understood. Yeah. Cool. And then we have a few minutes left, so we should get into stuff for next week. Assignments. Anyone want to be moderator?
I haven't been moderator in a long time. I'll do it.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody want to do notes next week?
I can volunteer to do notes.
Thanks, Adnan. And issue Sherpa. Butcher.
Right. Wait, Justin was about to say he would do it.
Yeah, I'll do it.
If you want to do it next week, that's fine. I should be.
You seem busy, man. I'll try to. I'll do something.
Because I have the next couple of weeks free, so I can pick up the week after.
Okay. All right, we have 3 minutes left. That closing out part went really fast. Is there anything else? Any last things with the last 2 minutes? Going once, going twice. Everyone, have a wonderful week, and we'll see each other online. Thanks, y'all.